Order, please. Before we begin the daily routine, the subject for this evening's late debate was submitted by the honourable member for Hants East. Therefore, be resolved that as the largest community in Nova Scotia without its own high school, Eastern Passage requires this government to move on construction of one to meet the serious need. The date this evening at 6 p.m. Order, please. Order, please. Honourable member Pictou East on the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Very pleased this afternoon and honored to introduce a couple in your gallery, Speaker's Gallery, all the way from the Glasgow, Victor County. My daughter, Jennifer, and her husband, Colin. Jennifer's a bank manager. Colin is for the benefit of the Minister of Education, he's a teacher in waiting, and I'd ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of the House.
Certainly welcome members' family to the gallery today. The honourable member for Colchester, Musquedoboit Valley on introduction.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm profoundly privileged to introduce a grade 8 class. There's 46 students that attend Musquedoboit Rural High School out in the beautiful Musquedoboit Valley. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to introduce their teachers, Garth Perrin and Terry Shute, as well as the chaperones, Tina Woodworth, Tammy Eisner, Crystal McDonald, and Laurie Brisbois. And Mr. Speaker, I had the privilege of speaking to the social study class last Wednesday, and I want to thank them again for the wonderful mug inscripted with the MRHS and Signet. I'd ask our guests to rise and receive a warm welcome from the legislature.
Certainly welcome our young guests to the gallery today and hope they enjoy the proceedings. The Honourable Minister of Human Resources.
I'm pleased to welcome to the House today in the Speaker's Gallery, Cosma Kabazi. Cosma is working with the Public Service Commission for the next 4 months under the Summer Diversity Program. Cosma is currently a student at St. Mary's University, where he is working on his commerce degree. And I'd ask the House to welcome Cosma.
Certainly welcome the gentlemen of the gallery as well. Begin the daily routine presenting reading petitions. The honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to table a petition. The operative clause reads, on behalf of the residents of Cap Rouge Road, formerly Joshua Road, we, the undersigned, are petitioning the government to get our road paved this year. The condition of our road is deplorable and unacceptable, and we feel we deserve to have our road paved. We have been waiting for far too long, and we need and want our road to be paved this year. Mr. Speaker, this has been signed by all the local residents on that road, and I have affixed my signature.
This is tabled. The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to table this petition on behalf of the residents of Mahan Road in Lingan, and the operative clause reads, the following is a petition by the current residents of Mahan Road, Lingan, to achieve the formal listing with the Department of Transportation and Public Works of this road. We also want the road placed on the list for upgrading a pavement. Presently, this road is in deplorable condition due to countless potholes and lack of proper drainage. This area now houses 9 family dwellings with the possibility of new family homes being built in the near future. There's 33 names to this petition, Mr. Speaker, and I've fixed mine.
Petition is tabled. The honourable member for Cape Breton West.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to table a petition on behalf of representatives from the Nova Scotia Government Employees Union with regards to the 1% contribution rate for the public service pension plan, and the operative clause being, we the undersigned call on the John Ham government to withdraw clause 46 of Bill 62 in favour of an extensive round of discussions with NSGEU and QP that will conclude by the end of 2004 about long-term solutions to the funding problems of the plan and the possibility of joint governance or trusteeship. And Mr. Speaker, I have also affixed my signature.
Petition is tabled. The honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to table a petition. The operative clause reads, we, the residents, taxpayers, and voters of Cleveland, Grantville, Euroville, and Lower River inhabitants, wish to express our great dissatisfaction with the deplorable condition of our road. This road serves not only local residents but also is the main crossroad for traffic to and from Highway number 105 and number 4 to the Fleur-de-Lis Highway. Because of the large volume of traffic, much of which is heavy equipment and school buses, and also the fact that the existing asphalt is approximately 30 years old, this road is in need of major repairs, replacement, resurfacing. This road, along with most other roads in the area, are not only causing damage to vehicles, but have also become a serious safety hazard. We would appreciate your favorable attention given to the serious condition of the road during the 2004 paving season. This is signed by local residents on these roads, and I have affixed my signature.
This is tabled. Presenting reports of committees. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as chairman on the Committee of the Committee on Law Amendments, I am directed to report that the committee has met and considered the following bill. Bill number 70, an act to amend Chapter 18 of the Acts of 1998, the Municipal Government Act, Chapter 300 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Municipal Elections Act, and Chapter 302 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Municipal Grants Act. The committee recommends the bill to the favorable consideration of the House without amendments.
The bill will be referred to the Committee of the Whole House on Bills. The Honourable Member for Cape Breton South.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Chairman of the Private Local Bills Committee, I'm directed to report that the committee has met and considered the following bills. Bill number 54, an act to incorporate St. Peter's Evangelical Lutheran Church of Chester, Lunenburg County, amended. Bill number 55, Lanahan Municipality District of Chester Retiring Allowance Act. Bill number 56, an act to incorporate the Nova Scotia Fish and Game Protective Association and county or district fish and game associations, amended. Bill number 60, an act respecting the Antigonish Farmers Mutual Fire Insurance Company, amended, and an act to confer additional powers upon Antigonish Farmers Mutual Fire Insurance Company, amended. Bill number 69, an act to incorporate the Halifax Dartmouth United Appeal, amended. Mr. Speaker, the committee recommends these bills to the favorable consideration of the House without amendments.
Or these bills be referred to the Committee of the Whole House on Bills. Table reports, regulations, and other papers. Statements by ministers. Government notice to motion. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the month of May has been designated National Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month, and whereas multiple sclerosis is the most common neurological disease affecting young adults in Canada, a chronic disabling disease affecting an estimated 50,000 Canadians, and whereas the MS Society of Canada and its Atlantic branch support MS research and services for people with the disease and their families, therefore be it resolved that all members of the House recognize May 2004 as Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month and acknowledge the MS Society's research and dedication to moving us closer to finding out what causes this disease. Mr. Speaker, I seek waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Question for waivers, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Cook Aquaculture is invested in the production of juvenile codfish at its Mink Cove aquaculture facility in Digby County, and whereas Cook Aquaculture is the only commercial aquaculture facility currently producing juvenile codfish in Canada, and whereas cod is expected to become a new aquaculture species, and companies like Cook Aquaculture will make Nova Scotia a world leader in its development. Therefore, be it resolved that this House recognize Cook Aquaculture for their commitment to new species aquaculture development and to provide economic opportunities in rural Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Question for waivers, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas this year marks the 125th anniversary of the incorporation of rural municipal government in Nova Scotia, and whereas legislation which provided the incorporation of the municipal units was entitled the County and Corporate Act of 1879 and took effect April 17th of that year, and whereas the Municipal Government Act is the present successor of the County Incorporation Act and encompasses the incorporation status of the new regional municipalities and the county and district municipalities. Therefore, be it resolved that members of this House acknowledge the 125th anniversary of the incorporation of rural municipal government and wish the staff and elected representatives of our municipal units, as well they continue to honor and value tradition and municipal government services as enshrined in the MGA by providing good government, providing services, facilities, and other things that, in the opinion of council, are necessary and desirable for all or part of the municipality, and developing and maintaining a safe and viable communities. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Waiver is agreed. All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas May 16th to 22nd is EHS Week all across Canada, and EHS paramedics, communications officers, and other personnel are among the best trained in North America. And whereas this year's theme, EHS, There When It Matters Most, reflects the fact that Nova Scotians can be confident in knowing that in their time of need, a team of talented healthcare professionals will be there to help. And whereas our integrated service system, combined with the use of the latest technology, makes our EHS system the envy of other Canadian and American jurisdictions, therefore be it resolved that all members of the House recognize the substantial impact that paramedics make in the lives of Nova Scotians each and every day, and acknowledge their commitment to providing quality patient care. Mr. Speaker, I seek waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Mr. Waiver, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Minister responsible for health promotion.
Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas falls are the leading cause of injury among seniors, affecting 1 in every 3 seniors. Whereas preventing falls is one of the 3 priority areas of the Provincial Injury Prevention Strategy developed in collaboration with injury stakeholders. Whereas the Office of Health Promotion today announced $300,000 over the next 3 years towards Preventing Falls Together, a project of Community Links. Therefore, be it resolved that this House congratulate Community Links and others who are committed to reducing injury among seniors among all Nova Scotians. And Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice, passage without debate.
Mr. Waiver, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Order, please. Introduction of bills. The Honourable Member for Colchester North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I introduce this bill, I would like permission to make an introduction. Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, through you, I draw the attention of the members to the Speaker's Gallery, where we have a number of professional people here today. And as I name the individuals, would you please rise, please? We have with us the Municipal Association of Police Personnel, representing the Halifax Regional Police, the President, John Gardner, Mary McDonald, Fernance Barna, Jeannie Rankin, Roger Sayer, and with the Police Association of Nova Scotia, we have with us today the Executive Director, Joe Ross, their Solicitor, Dave Fisher. Truro Police Service, we have Randy McKenzie. Also with the Truro Police Service, we have Wayne Mont. With the New Glasgow Police Service, we have Dwayne Rutledge. And also with the New Glasgow Police Service, we have the President of Police Association Nova Scotia, Eric McNeil. And finally, last but not least, the person that inspired this legislation from the Truro Police Service, Sherry Roberts. Now, Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill. The title reads, "An Act to Require the Taking of Blood Samples to Protect Victims of Crime, Emergency Service Workers, Good Samaritans, and Other Persons." Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Colchester North begs leave to introduce a bill entitled "An Act to Require the Taking of Blood Samples to Protect Victims of Crime, Emergency Service Workers, Good Samaritans, and Other Persons."
Bill 83, entitled An Act to Require the Taking of Blood Samples to Protect Victims of Crime, Emergency Service Workers, Good Samaritans, and Other Persons.
Or this bill be read a second time at a future date. And I'd like to say that it's wonderful to see the members of the police service, emergency workers here in the Province House today, and certainly welcome your attendance here, the introduction of this bill, and we hope you enjoy the proceedings. It's great to see you. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill, an act to amend Chapter 293 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Motor Vehicle Act.
The Honourable Member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 293 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Motor Vehicle Act.
Bill 84, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 293 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Motor Vehicle Act.
Or this bill be read a second time at a future date. Notice of motion. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas St. Mary's University, known for its community outreach projects both in Canada and internationally, will bestow honorary doctorate degrees upon individuals who have made significant contributions to our society during spring convocations on May 21st, 2004. And whereas former City Councillor and Mayor for the City of Dartmouth and decorated veteran Daniel Brownlow and newspaper publisher and Red Cross Humanitarian Award winner Graham Dennis are two recipients of the Doctor of Civil Law, and whereas Burris Devaney, educator and one of the forces behind the Nova Scotia Gambia Association, will also receive a Doctor of Civil Laws, therefore be it resolved that the members of this Legislative Assembly congratulate Daniel Brownlow, Burris Devaney, and Graham Dennis for being chosen as recipients of honorary doctorate degrees by St. Mary's University and recognize their outstanding contribution to society. And Mr. Speaker, I would request waiver and passage without debate.
Request for waivers, is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Cape Breton South.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the 2004 Saskatchewan budget raises the PST, taxes campfires, closes provincial parks, increases user fees, reviving Backer Keep, and whereas this Saskatchewan budget is a step backwards for that province and will no doubt slow their economy and increase out-migration, and whereas in their election platform the NDP made no mention of increasing taxes. Therefore, be it resolved, this House support the call for recall legislation in Saskatchewan allowing voters to fire their MLAs and force a by-election. I'd ask for notice of motion there.
You hear several noes? Notice is tabled. Order, please. Order, please. Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Amy Cotton of Jurdick in Inverness County was named the Icon Female Athlete of the Year at the 2004 Icon Sport Awards, and whereas Amy is poised to embrace the pinnacle of her career, the opportunity to compete in the 2004 Olympics in Athens, Greece, whereas all Nova Scotians and Canadians will be watching and cheering this judoka with pride. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House congratulate Amy Cotton on her remarkable achievements to date and wish her the best of success in Athens. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage for the debate.
All those in favour say aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Astle Drive Junior High School has a long tradition of excellence in athletics in both the capital region and at a provincial level. Whereas at this year's regional competition, the Astle Drive Junior High School cheerleading team won first place in the capital region. And whereas the Astle Drive cheerleading team was coached by Laura Conrad, Tara Jennings, and Amy Ferguson. Therefore, be it resolved that this House congratulate the Astle Drive Junior High School cheerleading team on winning the Capital Region Championship and congratulate and recognize the support of the parents and the coaches, Laura Conrad, Tara Jennings, and Amy Ferguson. I ask for waiver, Mr. Speaker.
Waivers, is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas in 2003, Premier John Hamm publicly indicated that power rates in Nova Scotia would increase by 29% if issues of the Kyoto Protocol were to be adopted. And whereas today at the Legislature's Economic Development Committee meeting, officials from the Department of Energy advised that they were unable to confirm if the Premier's statement on power rates were correct because of insufficient information. And whereas this is the second time Department of Energy officials have appeared before this committee calling into question the validity of the Premier's statement on Nova Scotia's power rates, therefore be it resolved that all members of this House recognize the Premier's comments as being politically motivated and not based on the advice of experts within the provincial public service.
Again?
Question for waiver. Question for waiver, was there? No. Notice is tabled. The honourable member Colchester Musquodoboit Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas until being put on the carpet by federal opposition leader Stephen Harper yesterday, Canada's Minister of Finance was refusing to say what he was doing with the forecasted $260 million a year in additional tax revenue from the gasoline pumps. And whereas out of the blue, this $260 million was suddenly directed to medical equipment purchases, and whereas on an annual basis the federal government siphons off nearly $145 million via the 10-cent per litre federal fuel excise tax from Nova Scotia motorists and truckers, therefore be it resolved that the Provincial Liberal Caucus encourage their federal cousins to cut the dastardly fuel excise tax and make it easier on the pocketbooks of Nova Scotia taxpayers. And Mr. Speaker, I would request waiver. I'm surprised at the Liberals.
Here, no. Notice the table. The honourable member Cole Harbour, Eastern Passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Royal Antediluvian Order of the Buffalo was created in the 19th century as a benevolent society in the United Kingdom to help the less fortunate. Whereas in 1954, residents in Eastern Passage and Cow Bay established the Royal Antediluvian Order of the Buffalo Eastern Lodge number 8686, affectionately known as the Buffalo Club, to provide services and support for the residents of Eastern Passage and Cow Bay. And whereas the Eastern Lodge...
Order, please. The honourable member Cole Harbour, Eastern Passage has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, whereas the Eastern Lodge, with over 1,000 members, is one of the largest, if not the largest, RAOB club in the world, and over the past 50 years it has provided countless funds and services to the people of Eastern Passage and Cow Bay. Therefore, be it resolved that this House congratulate the Royal Antediluvian Order of the Buffalo Eastern Lodge number 8686 on its 50th anniversary, and thank the club for its tireless efforts on behalf of the residents of Eastern Passage and Cow Bay, and wish it many more years of success. And I ask for waiver, Mr. Speaker.
Is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Halifax Clayton Park.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Masqua Aquatic Club was established on Carney Lake in Halifax in 1974 through the efforts of Alderman Alfie Hamshaw and others, and whereas over the past 30 years Masqua has become a summer tradition for members offering swimming and recreational and competitive paddling, and whereas Masqua has prospered through the efforts of many volunteers and has trained athletes who have competed at the national and international level, therefore be it resolved that the members of this House offer warm congratulations to co-presidents Eleanor Power and Margot Chaloux and to the members of Masqua Aquatic Club on their 30th anniversary. And Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Question for waivers is agreed. All those in favour say aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas this year the Kentfall and District Kinsman Club celebrates 40 years of serving their community's greatest needs, and whereas the club is in support of the Landmark East School, the Canning and Kentfall Fire Departments, and many other community organizations, and whereas the club membership has ensured that needy children in their community have had Merry Christmases, raising almost $17,000 to purchase Christmas gifts for these children. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House recognize the 40th anniversary of the Kentfall and District Kinsman Club and thank all the members of the club for the very important work they do in their community. I request waiver.
Question for waivers is agreed. All those in favour say aye. Counterminded nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Halifax Atlantic.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Eva May Gray left Milford Station and came to Sambro as a teacher in 1960, taught there till her retirement in 99, and whereas after going to a dinner theatre 5 years ago, Eva Marie decided that she too could and would write and produce a musical play, and whereas every year since then, Eva Marie has indeed written and produced a dinner theatre production for the benefit of St. James United Church. Therefore, be it resolved that this House congratulate Eva Murray and all the people of Zambro who sang, danced, and served up lobster in the church basement for more than 400 people in the run of this year's production, Lights, Camera, and Action. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Waivers, it agreed. All those in favour say aye. Counterminded, nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Dr. Joyce Ross, Executive Director for the East Preston Daycare Centre, will be retiring on September after 34 years of dedicated service to the children of East Preston. And whereas Dr. Ross's commitment to the community of East Preston goes above and beyond her commitment to the daycare, her dedication has been recognized with an honorary PhD from Dalhousie University, and she is a recipient of the Order of Canada. Whereas society needs more Dr. Rosses in our world, for without her tremendous efforts of Dr. Ross, the East Preston Daycare Centre would not be the building block of her community. Therefore, it be resolved that all members of this House acknowledge the formidable contributions Dr. Ross has made to our community and wish her a healthy and enjoyable and well-earned retirement. And I'd ask for a waiver and passage without debate.
Request for waivers, it agreed. All those in favour say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Guysborough, Sheet Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my resolution today is also seconded by the member for Antigonish. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the people who live in Copper Lake, Antigonish County have seen much change in their community over the years, and whereas Rose Sutherland Carter's book, Ripples from Copper Lake, tells the story of this community and its people from the times of the thriving copper mine to living through world wars and beyond. And whereas the 85-year-old's book not only captures the past of Copper Lake, but also presents the present and each family's genealogy to preserve in this book. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House congratulate Miss Rose Sutherland Carter on the publication of her wonderful book, Ripples from Copper Lake, and thank her for preserving the history of Copper Lake for future generations. And Mr. Speaker, I have a copy of Mrs. Sutherland's book that she has graciously signed and donated to the Legislative Library. Mr. Speaker,
agreed?
Agreed.
All those in favour say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. The honourable leader of the official opposition.
I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Nova Scotia is the home province of Canada's largest chartered bank, the Royal Bank, and another Big Five bank known around the world is the Bank of Nova Scotia. And whereas the federal Liberals are rushing to announce their good news, but are delaying until after the election their new bank merger guidelines, which have already been drafted, whereas those Liberal bank merger rules could very well endanger many Nova Scotia jobs through mergers like that which is now underway at Maritime Life. Therefore, be it resolved that this House urges the federal Liberals and other federal parties to make clear campaign commitments to bank rules that ensure jobs in local branches and in regional centres like Nova Scotia, plus a wide range of options and easier access to bank financing throughout Canada. And Mr. Speaker, I would request waiver and passage without debate.
Request for waiver. Here no. Notice is tabled. The member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas local amputee hockey player Justin Gauthier played for Team Canada in Prague in the Czech Republic at the World Championship, and whereas he played a key role for Canada, leading to the gold medal game by scoring 5 goals, 6 assists, and won MVP for the first game, whereas Justin returned with the gold medal and 2 individual awards, therefore be it resolved that members of this House congratulate Justin Gauthier and wish him the best of luck as he strives for a position on Canada's team at the 2006 Olympics in Italy. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Question waivers that agreed. All those in favour say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Waverley Fall River Beaverbank.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Lockview High School Senior Concert Band of Fall River recently returned from a tour of heritage music festivals in New York, and whereas the band under the direction of Joe Cormier performed extraordinarily well, capturing 1 gold standard along with 2 silver standards in 3 different musical instrumental classes. And whereas besides the heritage music festivals, band members were also able to enjoy other school concerts along with harbor cruises and a Broadway musical during their trip. Therefore, be it resolved, members of the House of Assembly recognize the hard work put forth by band instructor Joe Cormier and the students leading up to and while on their 8-day visit to New York in late April. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice.
Question for waiver, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Hants East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas volunteers often spend many long hours on boards as directors, vitally necessary to the organization in question, and whereas the delivery of health care in this province is by necessity and design dependent on grassroots input, and whereas on Volunteer Awards night, April 21st, 2004, Ms. Sue McGrewer was honored by the municipality of East Hants for her work with the District Health Authority. Therefore, be resolved that this House of Assembly congratulates Sue McGrewer for her skills and time filling such an important position. And Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and pass these out debate.
Question for waiver, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas in the spring of 1964, a group of women got together to form the St. Francis de Sales Catholic Women's League to serve the Lower River, Evanston, and surrounding communities. Whereas the members of the St. Francis de Sales CWL have played an important role in religious education, parish fundraisers, and supporting church activities. And whereas on Friday, June 11th, the St. Francis de Sales CWL will celebrate its 40th anniversary with a mass and reception bringing together past and current members. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House extend their congratulations and best wishes to the members of St. Francis de Sales Catholic Women's League for their hard work and commitment to St. Francis de Sales Parish. Speaker asks for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day to move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Father Leo Maya celebrated his 50th anniversary in the priesthood on May 5th, and whereas Father Maya was ordained in his native parish of St. Alphonse in 1954, and whereas Father Maya has since served many parishes throughout Nova Scotia and is currently the chaplain at the Yarmouth Regional Hospital and serves the senior citizens who live at the Villa Saint Joseph and Titleview Manor. Therefore, be it resolved that members of this House congratulate Father Leo Maya on his 50th anniversary in the priesthood and thank him for so many years of service to the people of Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Question for waiver, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Pictou West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas repaving Trunk 4 Highway at Mount Tom, Pictou County, has been identified as vital for kickstarting economic development by the Alma Mount Tom Strategic Planning Committee, and whereas the municipality of Pictou County sees repairing Highway 4 as critical and essential for the success of this strategic plan, and whereas this Route 4 was last paved in 1959 and has been in very poor condition for many years, therefore be it resolved that the Nova Scotia Department of Transportation immediately prioritize Highway 4 at Mount Tom for repaving in 2004. And Mr. Speaker, I request waiver and passage without debate.
Request waiver here. Several noes. Notice is tabled. The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Canada Customs and Revenue Agency coordinates and supports the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program, and whereas this necessary volunteer service provides assistance in tax preparation for seniors and persons who have modest incomes, and whereas for 6 consecutive years there has been a corps of committed volunteers in Digby and Annapolis who are willingly give untold hours to this program, completing hundreds of tax forms and during the months of March and April. Therefore be it resolved that all members of this House commend the efforts of Mr. Jim Wheelhouse, Mr. Ken Woodman, Mrs. Marie Carter, Mr. Roby Robinson, and Miss Christy Heron for their dedication to this worthwhile initiative. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver and notice without debate.
Question waiver, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas each year in March, the Veteran Firefighters Association hosts a dinner for all veterans in the Yarmouth Fire Department, and whereas during the event a veteran is honoured and recognized for his long service to the department, and whereas this year's recipient was a late Deputy Chief Bob Nelson, who was a 25-year member of the Hook and Ladder Company, and who who was very active in planning and constructing of the present fire hall. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House recognize contributions of Mr. Bob Nelson to the Yarmouth Fire Department and all the residents of Yarmouth. And Mr. Speaker, I request waivers.
Request for waivers. Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Cape Breton Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas on April 30th, 2004, Doug McNeil received the Nova Scotia School Athletic Federation Dr. U.A. Noble Distinguished Service Award. And whereas Doug McNeil spent 26 of his 35 years teaching at Sydney Academy, where he coached and managed the men's hockey team for 25 years, during which time his club captured 8 NSSAF championships, including an unprecedented 7 consecutive titles from 1974 to 1982, 9 Cape Breton titles, 8 Cape Breton Metros tournament titles, and 6 Red Cup titles, a track record second to none. Whereas Mr. McNeil has coached and taught members of this Legislative Assembly. Therefore, be it resolved that members of this Legislative Assembly congratulate Doug McNeil for his dedication and commitment to the Sydney Academy hockey team, establishing it as one of the premier high school hockey programs in the country. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver and notice and passage without debate.
Waivers. Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Joyce Grant Smith is an author and grade 6 teacher at the Annapolis Rural Regional Academy and has had many short stories published in numerous magazines, and whereas Joyce Grant Smith launched her first published novel, The Latch, on Saturday, May 15th, which has won the 2003 Joyce Barkos Award for Writing for Children, and whereas The Latch is a story of a young girl who was introduced to an Acadian family from 1755 by accessing their past through the discovery of the original Acadian door latch. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House recognize Joyce Grant Smith and wish her success with the launch of her new book. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Mr. Waiver, is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Barbara Hilbert has been serving the community of New Germany and surrounding area as public health nurse for the past 30 years, and was Ms. Hilbert played an integral role in delivering health care services in areas such as vaccination and prenatal care to the residents of New Germany and area. And whereas Ms. Barbara Hilbert is retiring on June 30th, 2004, after many years of service to her community, to her local community. Therefore, be resolved that the members of this House thank public health nurse Barbara Hilbert for her dedication to the health and well-being of the residents of New Germany and surrounding community over the past 30 years. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Royal Canadian Legions are the cornerstone of many communities in Nova Scotia because of the service they provide, and whereas in addition to providing support to our veterans and educating all Nova Scotians about the contribution and sacrifice made by our veterans, they also provide important youth programs and services for seniors, such as Meals on Wheels. And whereas 2004 marks the 25th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Legion Calais Branch 162 in Lower Sackville, where they have worked extremely hard providing these programs to the residents of their community. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of the Nova Scotia Legislature congratulate the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 162 in Lower Sackville on their 25th anniversary of providing support and services not only to our veterans but all Nova Scotians. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Mr. Waiver, is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas on September the 4th, 1974, the East Preston Daycare Centre opened its doors to care for 32 children with a staff of 9, and presently cares for 112 children with a staff of 25. And whereas the East Preston Daycare has received national and international recognition for the outstanding work they do, and whereas for the past 30 years, under the direction of Dr. Joyce Ross, the East Preston Daycare Centre has provided a solid foundation for many children, providing a safe and fun environment for those children to blossom. Therefore, be resolved that all members of this House recognize the East Preston Daycare Centre and congratulate them on the 30 years of nurturing care of children from all communities.
Please. Order, please. There's too much noise in the chamber. The honourable member read the therefore be resolved, please.
Okay, therefore it be resolved that all members of this House recognize East Preston Daycare Centre and congratulate them on the 30 years of nurturing care for children from all communities. Mr. Speaker, I'd ask for waiver and passage without debate.
Question for waiver is agreed. All those in favour say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas students and teachers of City Mines' St. Joseph's Elementary School under the leadership of Principal Jim McPherson are working on an important lesson piece, and whereas the school is focusing on various themes each month to impress upon its young students the importance of making their school environment a safe, tranquil place of learning, and whereas the principal says positive lessons learned on respect, self-esteem, bullying, diversity, and friendship will not only emanate throughout the school but also through their broader community, therefore be it resolved that members of this House commend the efforts of staff and the students at St. Joseph's Elementary in making their school and community more tolerant, peaceful places. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Question waiver is agreed. All those in favour say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be asking for waiver and passage without debate. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas thousands of Canadian soldiers, including W.I. Bill Estabrooks of New Brunswick's North Shore Regiment, landed on the beaches of Normandy 60 years ago on June 6, 1944, whereas the Canadians advanced to capture the city of Caen and to liberate Holland, whereas these veterans, their accomplishments and courage will be remembered on Sunday, June 6, 2004. Therefore, be it resolved that the Nova Scotia House of Assembly recognize these veterans and encourage Nova Scotians to attend D-Day ceremonies on June the 6th, lest we forget. I ask for waiver.
Question for waiver, is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Richmond.
Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas in 1984, John F. Sampson, Brian Sampson, and Edgar Sampson joined together to form Premium Seafoods and Arishat, a lobster buying company which had an annual sale of $66,000. And whereas with the passing of John F. Sampson, Brian Sampson, and Edgar Sampson went on to form the Premium Group, which includes companies purchasing and processing lobster, crab, along with fresh fish sales. Whereas this year marks the 20th anniversary of the Premium Group, which now has over 200 employees and had annual sales of $35 million in 2003. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House extend their congratulations to Brian Sampson and Edgar Sampson of the Premium Group, along with their management and staff, for growing the Premium Group of companies into a successful Ilmadam business and wish them a successful future. Speaker, I ask for waiver and passage without debate.
Question for waiver, is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas residents living on gravel subdivision streets in the growing provincial constituency of Timberley Prospect have petitioned the Halifax Regional Municipality and the provincial government for needed paving work, whereas these citizens have been very patient throughout this process, and whereas the Provincial Department of Transportation must continue to provide cost-sharing funding for such projects, therefore be it resolved that the HRM and the Provincial Transportation Department identify the streets which will be paved in 2004.
Table. The Honourable Member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas more than 20 of the province's newest cooks, plumbers, welders, and other newly certified tradespeople were honored at an apprenticeship event at the Digby Pines on Saturday, May the 8th. Whereas the event recognized tradespeople who recently completed a 4-year, 8,000-hour apprenticeship training program in one of the 53 designated trades, including automotive servicing, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, cooking, and welding. And whereas John Drish of Halifax received an award for excellence in coaching and mentoring. Therefore be it resolved that all members of this House congratulate John Drish and other winners for the job well done and continued success. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
Question for waiver, is it agreed? All those in favour say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Halifax Citadel on introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me great pleasure to introduce in the West Gallery some special guests that we have here. These are representatives of the arts and culture community here in Nova Scotia who continue to express their concerns about some developments. And I'd ask at the end of my introduction that they please stand. Gay Hauser of Live Art Productions, Krista Welsh and Jason Parkhill of Opera Nova Scotia, Marie Keller, a video artist, Andrew Terrace of Arts Nova Scotia Cultural Research, Ian McKinnon of Groundswell Productions, Zeth Levinson of Live Arts Production, Tim Gillespie, the former chair of the Nova Scotia Arts and Cultural Partnership Council, and 3 budding artists who we have with us. I hope I caught everyone, but perhaps most importantly, 3 budding artists, Mari McKinnon, Aidan McKinnon, and Anya Friesen, who are here with their father, Ian McKinnon. I'd like them to be welcome to the chamber, Mr. Speaker.
Certainly welcome our special guests to the gallery today and hope they enjoy the proceedings. Any further resolutions? Order, please. The Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party.
Could the government indicate if the Premier is going to be attending today's question period?
House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I believe the Premier will be here. I can have somebody check on that and have you find out when he'll be here.
Orders of the day or questions put by members. Question period begin at 12:55. We'll end at 1:55. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Hear, hear. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the keys to low prices in a deregulated market is a healthy, independent retail market. The Retail Gasoline Dealers Association of Nova Scotia says that independent retailers are being squeezed out by unfair practices. They wrote this government, Mr. Speaker, on May 3rd, stressing that without government action, there will be more closures, a decline in competition, a decline in service levels, and further domination by the major oil companies. So my question to the Minister of Service Nova Scotia is, what has your government done to protect our independent market by ensuring fair marketing practices?
The Honourable Minister of Service Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations.
Mr. Speaker, I would say to the member opposite and to all Nova Scotians that we have tabled a piece of legislation before the House that will enable us to set regulations to ensure that Nova Scotians are treated fairly as well. Mr. Speaker, I would say that I personally met with the Independent Retailers Association and a number of retailers in advance of that legislation.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on your first supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if he's met with the Retail Dealers Association and he has in his possession the letter that he knows that they have said, and I'll quote, and I'll table the letter, Mr. Speaker, the unfair competition that comes directly from major oil company operated and controlled outlets throughout the province now makes it impossible for Nova Scotia's independent retailers to manage their gasoline margin requirements. Mr. Speaker, independent operators are good for the system. My question for the Minister of Nova Scotia is, what are you going to do today to protect independent operators in this province?
Now, Minister of Service Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I indicated, we have legislation that's before this House, but in addition to that, Mr. Speaker, I have also taken the initiative to write to Minister Robillard, Industry Canada, to ensure her or to inform her that issues around competition fairness have been brought to my attention, and I've asked her to direct her staff to investigate.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on your final supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that is exactly the wrong direction. We know here that in Nova Scotia there were 900 stations in 1991. Now there are roughly 500. When the NDP raised their concerns in 1997, then Minister Wayne Gadet said that he was going to wait for the Federal Provincial Consumer Measures Committee. There's no record of any action by that committee. So my question is this. Why does the minister follow the failed Liberal example by coming up with excuses instead of taking specific steps to ensure a fair market for the independent stations who are particularly important to rural Nova Scotia?
Order, please. Just a reminder to all members not to use other members' names, either refer to their portfolio or their constituency, please. The Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia Municipal Relations. Order, please. Order, please. Order. Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. We'll revert back to question period. Now, Minister of Service, Nova Scotia Municipal Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that they got their little tiff sorted out, maybe I can answer the question, Mr. Speaker. As I indicated to the member opposite, the legislation that's before the House allows us to develop regulations that will, in measures, protect independent retailers. Mr. Speaker, I recognize that a simple letter to the Minister of Industry Canada will not necessarily provide the level of protection that is necessary for Nova Scotians. That's why we brought forward this legislation, to protect Nova Scotians, Mr. Speaker. That's what it's about.
The honourable member for Glace Bay.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Deputy Minister of Health, in one of his final acts as head of that department, began the process of defending a report that is yet to be released. Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotia was a province examined in this report, a report that is set to reveal that there were between 4,400 and 10,000 Canadians who died in healthcare facilities as a result of medical error. In the media this morning, the Deputy Minister of Health was reported as saying that the challenges are, quote, a systems problem. Mr. Speaker, my question for the Minister is, given that comment, could the Minister please explain why the Nova Scotia Health Information System will be 2 years behind schedule once it's finally implemented?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I can assure the honourable member, and I can assure the House, Mr. Speaker, that when that system is implemented, it will go a long way to addressing the concerns that are being raised by this report. And this government had the foresight to proceed with the implementation of that system. And when it's up and running, we will be in a position to respond to the concerns that are identified in the report referenced by the honourable member.
The honourable member for Glace Bay, and your first supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, as the Deputy Minister said yesterday, we may be on the leading edge of patient safety, but according to this government's timetable, we are behind schedule. In April of 2001, the government promised a $30 million, 3-year, fully integrated health information system that will
Order, please. There's a lot of distraction in the chamber, and I ask all members either to take their places or take the conversation outside, please. There's cameras that are underway here, and it's interfering with that process. So ask all members. All member Glace Bay on this question.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In April of 2001, the government promised a $30 million, 3-year, fully integrated health information system that will be 2 years behind schedule when it's finally implemented, and to date, it's about $24 million over budget. It's a much-needed system, Mr. Speaker, that'll save time, it'll save money, and most importantly, has the potential to save lives. But something has gone wrong.
Question, please.
My question for the Minister is, could the Minister please explain why Nova Scotian healthcare professionals, and indeed all Nova Scotians, have seen very little benefit of a health information system despite a $24 million over-expenditure?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The system that is referenced by the honourable member has been implemented in District 7. It has been in the process of being almost fully implemented in District 8, and it is being spread throughout the rest of the province. Mr. Speaker, when that system is up and running, we will have one of the most effective patient information systems in this country.
Now, member for Glace Bay, and your final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the Department of Health has spent to date the following amounts. In 2001 and 2, $5.4 million, $12.5 million in 2002 and 3, $19.1 million in 2003 and 4, in 2004 and 5, $17.1 million, $54.1 million, Mr. Speaker. My final question for the Minister is, Mr. Speaker, this health information system will reduce wait times, avoid duplication of services, and address the challenges faced with issues like drug interactions. So what assurances can the Minister give today that this health information system will be ready to go, including the appropriate training for staff according to his newly revised timeline for implementation.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I can assure the honourable member and I can assure the House that this system, as it is being implemented, is proving to be extremely beneficial to all practitioners in healthcare, to patients, and to everyone who needs the patient information that is being provided through this system. It is being spread throughout the province, Mr. Speaker, and we anticipate it to be up and running and to be one of the best systems in this country when it's finished.
The honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question through you is to the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Heritage. The Minister likes to boast about the many ways his department promotes culture, Mr. Speaker. The only culture in evidence so far is a culture of fear and silence created when he terminated the arm-length Arts Council and replaced it with a tightly controlled body, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
So my question to the Minister, what is your government so afraid of that it had to dismantle an arm's-length funding body for the arts in this province?
The honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it's obvious that the member wasn't here during that time, Mr. Speaker, and I do thank him for his question. But, Mr. Speaker, what I will say, Mr. Speaker, is that this government has put forward programs to support artists across this province. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to support artists across this province.
Member Sackville-Cobequid on your first supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many members of the arts community will say privately that they won't criticize the new council publicly because they're afraid of losing access to government funding for their projects, Mr. Speaker. In short, they don't want to be on the minister's naughty list when it comes time for awarding these grants, Mr. Speaker, and they should be afraid because with no arm's-length peer review process for funding, the minister has free range. My question to the minister, will he commit that disbanding the Arts Council is more than allowing political patronage than patronage of the arts, Mr. Speaker?
There you go.
Now the Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would certainly challenge that member with respect to his indication that the peer assessment process is not in place, because it is in place for those programs which were under the previous council.
Now, Member Sackville-Cobequid on your final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, but it appears that the minister and his staff picked more than the partnership does. The Arts Partnership Council does not allocate money or determine budgets, Mr. Speaker. The minister even acted as their spokesperson for the group last week, yet again cutting off the board from direct contact with the cultural sector. My final question to the minister is, if he has nothing to hide, why not restore the arm-length Art Council and let the arts community itself determine who most worthy of receiving government support through a transparent, fair process?
Now, Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure you, through you to the member and all members, Mr. Speaker, that the peer review process is very much intact with respect to the programs which were under the previous council. I can also indicate, Mr. Speaker, that the individuals who are serving on the current council are very respected members of our communities across our province, Mr. Speaker. The evidence is clear, Mr. Speaker. This government cares about culture and cares about the investments we're making in the arts and cultural community.
The honourable member for Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Heritage. Today, the former head of the Nova Scotia Arts Commission, along with a number of his colleagues from across Nova Scotia, are in the gallery. Mr. Gillespie left his position with the Arts Commission because he says the minister and his department have stonewalled the Commission's work. So my question for the minister, will the minister tell this House how many times in the past year he met formally with the Commission, and does he feel that was adequate?
Now, the Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Mr. Speaker, the last time I met with the council, Mr. Speaker, was last week on Friday, Mr. Speaker.
Now, member for Annapolis on your first supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Nova Scotia Arts Commission was established, it was designed as an independent organization which would advise the minister and his department on issues surrounding arts and culture in Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, when the government is distributing money for arts and culture events in Nova Scotia, the Arts Commission should have been involved in each and every one of the government's funding decisions. So my question is, will the minister tell this House what level of input the Arts Commission had on funding decisions made by his department for the arts?
Now, Minister of Tourism and Culture.
Mr. Speaker, I tabled in this House the other day the progress report, Mr. Speaker, with respect to the new Arts and Culture Partnership Council. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, We will be continuing to move forward on a number of initiatives. Right now, the Arts and Culture Partnership Council is reviewing the organizations program, and I expect those recommendations to come forward in the month of June.
The honourable member for Annapolis on your final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Out of frustration, Mr. Gillespie has resigned from the Commission and is now looking, with the help of others, to organize a separate group made up of people from the arts community to try to do what the Arts Commission could not, influence the government. So my question is, will the minister not admit scrapping the former Nova Scotia Arts Council was a mistake and that the new Arts Commission simply isn't working?
Honourable Minister of Tourism and Culture.
I certainly disagree with the member's comments, Mr. Speaker. I believe the new Arts Council is working. I thank Mr. Gillespie for the time which he served as chair and on the council, Mr. Speaker. But the council is moving forward. As I mentioned, that the council members are very well respected from across this province, and we look forward to continue working with them.
The honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question will go to the minister responsible for skyrocketing gasoline prices, Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. As I indicated last time, order, please. Order, please, or I'll bump someone. Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Members are wasting other members' time, and if it continues, I'll be asking some members to leave the assembly. You know, I believe the official opposition on this question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much for pointing out that mistake. It's not skyrocketing gasoline prices. It's the minister responsible for municipal affairs and service Nova Scotia. The federal government announced yesterday that it will identify the additional HST revenue earned from record-high gasoline prices, and it will dedicate that money to the purchase of medical equipment. The federal finance minister stated that at current prices, the federal GST-HST windfall could be as much as $230 million this year. So Nova Scotia's windfall HST revenues from these outrageous gasoline prices are now going to be identified, Mr. Speaker. So my question for the minister is this, what is the government going to do with its tax windfall from the gasoline prices that are already reaching $1 a litre?
Good question.
The honourable Minister of Service Nova Scotia Municipal Relations.
That would be a question that would be more appropriate for the Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I did have the opportunity, as the honourable member, to see what the federal government was talking about yesterday. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the increased cost of gasoline and the HST on it, Speaker, it's been the experience in this province that expenditures are balanced out in one area against another. The pot doesn't increase that much. Mr. Speaker, we've made our commitment to health care. That's what we'll be doing. That's what's in the budget.
The honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on your first supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the federal government has a different experience, and they know that prices at the pumps are 10 cents higher than they were 2 weeks ago. On an annual basis, that translates into provincial windfalls of more than $9 million, and the province will also receive an unexpected increase in federal money for medical equipment. If yesterday's federal commitment is honored, unlike, of course, the tax rollback that the Liberals campaigned for and then voted against. The provincial windfall should be put in the hands of seniors and other low and fixed incomes who need protection from high fuel costs. So my question is, why should this government keep its windfall from the misery created by these record high prices?
The honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the honourable member is right. The impact of high gas prices are affecting everybody, and that's why the Minister of Service Nova Scotia brought in that plan that he did to assist Nova Scotians. But, Mr. Speaker, we will have to wait and see how this experience goes on before we can determine whether there's any additional revenue. And I also say to the honourable member, he indicated that we'll be getting money for medical equipment. All I can say to that honourable member is we'll have to wait till the check arrives, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable Leader of Official Opposition on your final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Elections, like minority legislative situations, give voters much greater and more immediate influence. The federal Liberals have rejected a 2-cent gasoline tax break, claiming that it is an ineffective response to the problem in favor of a program for the windfall receipts, Mr. Speaker. I'm looking for a commitment from this Conservative government and to ask them to also pay back their HST windfall. So perhaps the Minister of Finance could tell Nova Scotians, why are you so determined to hang on to the windfall that tax take from these record high gasoline prices?
Mr. Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as I indicated to the honourable member, how that experience plays out over the next few months, we'll have to wait and see. But what I can say to that honourable member, Mr. Speaker, is what we are committed to doing is to putting more money into health care, to promoting education and roads. That's what this government's about.
The honourable member for Cape Breton South.
Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Minister responsible for the Office of Economic Development. Mr. Speaker, this government is failing students who need summer jobs, especially in areas of high unemployment. In 1999, Mr. Speaker, the provincial employment program for students administered by the previous government had a budget of $6 million and it employed 2,632 students. Last week, a press release announced that the budget for the program this year is $1.6 million and only 600 students are being hired. What the press release didn't say, Mr. Speaker, is that there are 2,000 fewer jobs available this year than in 1999. It also didn't say that it was too late for nonprofit groups to apply for funding. Many of those, Mr. Speaker, who did apply, like daycare centres in Sydney, received nothing. My question to the minister, why is this minister denying funding to daycare centres in Sydney who desperately need student help this summer?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And what the honourable member also did not say was that there was a $600 million deficit created by the government that we had to deal with in 1999. That being said, this year's funding is the same as last year's funding, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member Cape Breton South on your first supplementary.
What the minister is doing here, Mr. Speaker, is blaming the students. Blaming the students for his inability to come up with enough money in this province to provide adequate jobs for students this summer. Since 1999, this government has continued to gut the provincial employment program for students. Over $4 million was cut from that budget. This government has eliminated 2,000 summer jobs since 1999, and most of those jobs were for areas outside of Halifax. 2,000 jobs eliminated, Mr. Speaker. All of these jobs went to nonprofit organizations. It's an absolute disgrace that this government could even contemplate cutting that number of jobs away from students this summer. My first supplementary to the minister. Why is the minister giving up on providing funding for university students and nonprofit organizations like daycare centres?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as I pointed out, the funding is identical to last year, and certainly the province, unlike the federal government with their program, do supply support to nonprofit organizations. And I'd like to point out to the honourable member in the House the highest record number of Nova Scotians ever are working in Nova Scotia, over 445,000. And the private sector is certainly employing summer students as well. This government has made that commitment that through the private sector funding or job creation, and the climate is there. But, Mr. Speaker, the facts remain. We're supplying the same amount as last year.
Member Cape Breton South on your final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, in regards to a statement about jobs, in reality, there are 6,000 fewer jobs in Nova Scotia today than there were in 1999. And also, Mr. Speaker, what should be known to Nova Scotians, there are 2,000 less student jobs this year than there were in 1999. That is a fact, Mr. Speaker. No matter how much that minister wants to wax eloquent about it, that is the fact. There are 2,000 jobs less in Nova Scotia today than there were in 1999. I would ask the minister again, Mr. Minister, why are you trying to balance the budget on the backs of university students and students who need jobs in daycare centres this summer in order for those daycare operations to carry on?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, again, the honourable member is waxing himself because this government has dealt with a deficit of $600 million that the previous government left. We've ensured that the student employment program has continued. It is the same amount of dollars that were last year, and the private sector are employing even more students ever in the history of this province. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, we asked the minister responsible for insurance why his government planned to hide insurance company rate filings from Nova Scotians. Yesterday, the minister said, and I quote, "Nova Scotians will have access to as much information on auto insurance rate filings as possible." Now, Mr. Speaker, that statement does not qualify as an answer. My question for the minister responsible is this: will the people who actually pay the rates know what rate increases companies are applying for before the board makes a decision?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I wish I could answer that question, but in truth I can't. At the present time, however, I can assure the honourable member that the Insurance Review Board is holding public hearings, and after they've completed the round of public hearings, they'll be coming forward with policy with regard to how their hearings shall be conducted. At that time, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, as all Nova Scotians, will be aware of what the process will be.
The Honourable Leader of Official Opposition on your first supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, insurance companies will be able to file for rate increases in just 1 month. Last spring, it was a public outcry to news of dramatic rate increases that forced this government to act. Now, Mr. Speaker, the minister should know that in New Brunswick, it's an insurance company that wants to keep the rate application secret, and it's the review board that is trying to keep the information public. So, Mr. Speaker, my question is this: why is it so difficult for the minister's government to see that, given the insurance history in this province, public disclosure is in everyone's best interest?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, it must be a terrible disappointment for the New Democratic Party to be in this province and noticing that we have an insurance system that is now the best in Canada with the lowest rates in Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on your final supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is the same government.
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on your final supplementary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, and I'm absolutely certain that the minister believes that, and he's right in there with those people who believe that Elvis is still alive. This government, Mr. Speaker, does not have much time left to figure out what information will or will not be released to the public. At the very least, what was public before should be public now, and that is the summary of proposed rate increases. So my question to the Minister for Insurance is this: will you guarantee that at the very least the Insurance Review Board will release the actual rate increases that companies are applying for?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I'm terribly sad for the Honourable Leader of the Opposition. I really am. You know, he obviously still believes that Elvis is still wandering around. And Mr. Speaker, you know, the best you could do is say, well, he's Henny Penny running around. Look, the sky's falling. Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the honourable member would listen very carefully. We have the best insurance scheme in Canada. We have the lowest rates in Canada. Nova Scotians have got $55 million in their pockets that they wouldn't have if that crowd was in power.
Order, please. The member for Halifax Clayton Park. Halifax Clayton Park.
Thank you.
Order, please. Order, please. Honourable member for Halifax Clayton Park.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we saw last week at the Public Accounts Committee that there are a number of agencies that are directly responsible for gaming in Nova Scotia. The Alcohol and Gaming Authority, under Section 56 of the Gaming Control Act, is mandated to study the public interest and reaction, as well as to study the social, health, and justice impacts of gaming on Nova Scotians. Mr. Speaker, since the Tories have assumed power in 1999, their annual report has shrunk dramatically from 283 pages in 1998-99, along with a very large appendix that went with that, to a measly 42 pages in 2001-2002. And I can table these since I've shown them. But it's a dramatic difference in size of those reports, Mr. Speaker. The question, Mr. Speaker, is that even worse than that, there's been no report since 2001-2002. My question for the minister is, why is the Alcohol and Gaming Authority ignoring its responsibility and not filing annual gaming reports as required by the Act?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, but I'll have to refer that to the Minister in charge of the Alcohol and Gaming Commission.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable members will understand that I'm acting for the minister today, and I'm sure that I'll report the question to the minister, and he'll provide the honourable member with his answer.
Halifax Clayton Park on the first supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There appears to be a little confusion about which minister has responsibility for the Alcohol and Gaming Authority, and I think that points out the fact that it is very, very diffused at the moment. There's too many players. In the past, before being silenced, the Alcohol and Gaming Authority did provide an independent view of the negative impacts of gaming in Nova Scotia. My question to the minister, I guess the Justice Minister, would be, wouldn't it have been helpful to have the annual gaming report that details the extent of the negative consequences of gaming before doling out a $9,000 bonus to the head of the Gaming Corporation for reaching so-called responsible gaming targets?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister of Justice.
I'm not sure if the honourable member's question was to me relative to the Gaming Corporation's Chief of the CEO's salary, or it was to me as Acting Minister of Environment and Labour. I'll assume the question was related to the issue of the authority's question and not to the corporation. And the answer is quite simply that one of the things that we're most proud of was to eliminate a superfluous board that used to exist, that used to pay a large amount of salaries out to accomplish no useful purpose, and by divvying up those responsibilities between the civil service and the UARB, we accomplished a great deal of saving and benefited the taxpayers.
I'll member Halifax Clayton Park on your final supplementary.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, the government is determined to bury its head in the sand with respect to the negative consequences of gaming. Regardless of which department is responsible for detailing it, there is a responsibility to provide the detail. My final question, Mr. Speaker, to the same minister, I would hope, given the Premier's stated concern for the harmful effects of gaming, has your government silenced the Alcohol and Gaming Authority because of the embarrassment that its reports could cause, or has the minister simply not been paying attention to filing requirements?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to refer to the Honourable Minister for Health Promotion, who provided a more fulsome answer.
The Honourable Minister of Health Promotion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I would just like to point out through to the member and to other members, Mr. Speaker, that we will have a prevalence study coming out in a few weeks with respect to gaming in our province, Mr. Speaker. In addition to that, we are working very closely with my colleague, the Minister of Finance, with respect to a responsible gaming strategy following that for the province of Nova Scotia.
The Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Community Services. I want to discuss a 14-year-old who we can't identify, but whose case the Minister knows well of. This youth has been bouncing from program to program for years, Mr. Speaker. In fact, he was the first client at the Wood Street Centre, but was released just after 30 days. After intervention, a place was found in a group home, but he was moved because of violent behavior, Mr. Speaker. He left the ACT program and is now living on the streets. I asked the minister, how could he allow a 14-year-old to live on the streets while he is a ward under the minister's care?
Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Again, Mr. Speaker, I acknowledge that the youth's name has not been mentioned here in the legislature. I would specifically say that he was put into a program and he ran away from the program, but I am pleased to say that he is now back within the care of the department. And
Sackville-Cobequid on your first supplementary.
And I have to say, Mr. Speaker, a program that he could voluntarily leave at that. Mr. Speaker, recently police picked him up, this 14-year-old, as he was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and a cracked pipe was found in his pocket. We are talking about a 14-year-old who desperately needs help, Mr. Speaker. So far, this government and the system has failed him. A few minutes ago, I just received word that he is in custody, living under the guard of a police officer in a motel. But the Wood Street Secured Treatment Facility in Truro is refusing to take him back, Mr. Speaker, even though it appears to be the only safe option for this young youth in our community. Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, this young man obviously needs intensive care in a secured environment, so why isn't he receiving it?
Minister of Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for the question, because the Wood Street Secure Care Facility is it's a new facility. It's providing an opportunity to send Nova Scotian youths with emotional or behavioral problems there, but it is a secure care facility, and as such, they're only able to be kept there during 5 business days without getting a court order. In essence, they are in a secure treatment facility, meaning that they are not able to wander about, leave the center, and that the court system, the justice system, takes a dim view of just arbitrarily doing away with youth rights. So there is a dilemma here, but we are going to work with this youth and his family, and we're doing the best we can to deal with a very challenging situation.
The member for Sackville-Cobequid on your final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister just said Wood Street Care Facility. From my recollection, it was the Wood Street Care Secured Treatment Facility. I don't know if care and treatment are the same words, but I'm sure they're going to have to look at that. Mr. Speaker, at the last count, the Wood Street Centre had 8 vacant beds. The family has been told that the staff at Wood Street Centre can't handle this youth, and that's why he won't be accepted there. Mr. Speaker, I ask the Minister, it seems pointless to build a secured care facility for youth if the staff are unable to handle behavioral problems, but this appears to be the case with this young man. So given this reality, what will the Minister do to address this urgent situation before it's too late?
The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this gives me a chance to elaborate further on the operation of the Wood Street Centre. Mr. Speaker, the centre is a new program. We knew when we set it up that there was going to be adjustments, getting the right mix of staff in place and the comfort levels. This is normal with any new program. And Mr. Speaker, as anticipated, there have been challenges. We're dealing with them. We're overcoming it. And it is a good program. And we look forward to working with the staff there so that it can get up to its capacity of 20.
The Honourable Member for Cape Breton Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Cape Breton police attribute a growing number of deaths to OxyContin abuse, and a number of prescription opiate addicts reporting to the detox unit has more than doubled in the past 4 years, and yet the Minister of Health has been standing by while detox and rehab services have been closed or limited their services. Yesterday, John Malcolm said the job of the Community Task Force on prescription drug abuse is bigger than he expected, and that while the group may release an initial report next month, meetings will likely be continue into the fall. My question, Mr. Speaker, through you to the Minister of Health: why won't he admit that the more immediate action is required and the province needs to take some action other than simply saying that OxyContin is a Cape Breton problem?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I can tell the honourable member and I can tell members of the House that we will work very closely with the officials, the Cape Breton District Health Authority, and all who have worked with them in the examination of this problem. And certainly we're quite anxious to learn from their experiences in terms of whatever applications may be province-wide relative to this very serious problem.
The Honourable Member Cape Breton Nova on your first supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, between 2000 and 2003, the number of OxyContin prescriptions dispensed in Cape Breton rose 270%, and it's expected to increase again this year. In the Maclean's article that I will table, John Stewart, the Executive Vice President and General Manager of Purdue Pharma in Canada, the company that makes the drug, acknowledges that OxyContin's widespread availability may have led to its abuse. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Minister of Health if he has met with Purdue Pharma to talk about the problem and any possible solutions.
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have not personally met with the firm. However, we note very carefully their involvement, Mr. Speaker, and the concerns that they have, and their concerns are the same as concerns that all of us have in ensuring that we are able to effectively deal with this problem. And, Mr. Speaker, that is not something that we can snap our fingers at, but it is something we are committed to solving as we move forward.
Member for Cape Breton Nova, on your final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't expect anybody to snap their fingers, Mr. Speaker, and the problem is serious as this. Mr. Speaker, Newfoundland and New Brunswick are experiencing the same problem with OxyContin. Here in Nova Scotia, it seems that the province's prescription monitoring program has dropped the ball. We have learned that the province was getting calls in 2001 to report suspicions that the drug was being abused. The drug was not flagged for special monitoring until this year. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the Minister of Health why his department did nothing about this for 2 years after they knew there were concerns of OxyContin abuse, and why he is still standing by while lives are being destroyed in my community.
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, it's far from accurate to suggest that we are standing by while this very serious problem is underway. We have worked with the District Health Authority. We have supported the District Health Authority in their efforts to involve the local community. We stand prepared to receive their report and to act upon the recommendations that come forward from that report, Mr. Speaker. We recognize this as being a very serious problem. It's a problem that we want to find, for which we want to find a solution, and Mr. Speaker, we are determined to do that.
Member for Preston.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister responsible for the Workers' Compensation Board. In the Workers' Compensation Annual Report 2003, the workers' compensation funding percentage has dropped from 73.2% to 67.2%, a 5% drop as of the end of 2003. The unfunded liability is now a whopping $412 million. The Minister is allowing the Board to fund chronic pain through regulation and not a bill before this legislature. My question to the Minister is, what is the Minister going to do to ensure that the unfunded liability does not overtake the ability of the Board to provide money for claims?
Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much. And as the honourable member is aware with respect to chronic pain, there's a decision of the Supreme Court of Canada which the government has an obligation to assist the Workers' Compensation Board in complying with. And Mr. Speaker, obviously that was going to have an effect on the unfunded liability of the board. But Mr. Speaker, that is a reality in a democracy. We have to respect the rule of law. Thank you.
Now a member for Preston on your first supplementary.
Well, I'm surprised at the Minister's action and reply to the question, but I'm not surprised. Here it is. This is a 2003 unfunded liability drop of 5%. And he talks about the unfunded liability that's going to be created by the Supreme Court ruling, which is true. So it's going to grow even worse. So the Minister only has two options left. He can either jack up the rates to businesses and cost them more money, or he can add people to the system. In other words, big banks or small operations, one or two people in the communities, which we hope never happens in Nova Scotia. But he must choose. Now the board is faced with either or position. And I ask the Minister again, what is the board going to do to increase rates or extend payment schedules?
Justice.
Thank you very much. And as the honourable member would be aware, in Nova Scotia we have an independent Workers' Compensation Board who is responsible for setting the rates for workers' compensation premiums in this province. Mr. Speaker, that board, composed of both labour and industry representatives, will set the rates, Mr. Speaker. They are very aware of the unfunded liability and will be working towards reducing that unfunded liability.
The honourable member for Preston on your final supplementary.
Again, I'm not surprised with the answer.
Order, please. The honourable member for Preston has the floor in his final supplementary.
Not too long ago, the government stated that they would not increase the rates. They stated that. And then the minister now tells me that the board sets the rates. So I do believe the board sets the rates. So they got to make their mind up which they're going to do. I know that the minister keeps avoiding the issue and hopes it'll go away. It's not going to go away. There's either going to be major rate increases, or there's going to be people added to the list, or people aren't going to get payments. That's what's going to happen. My question in the final supplementary are small business going to suffer and be faced with higher premiums because of the minister's inaction?
Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much. I'm not I find it hard to answer the honourable member's question as it hopped around a bit. But the short version of an answer to his question would be to simply point out to the honourable member that there has been a very negative equity market in Canada up until recently. And that negative equity market has affected pension plans. It's affected, obviously, the WCB investments, Mr. Speaker. And you know, Mr. Speaker, and insurance, the minister responsible points out to me, as that equity market improves, it will also assist the board in meeting the unfunded liabilities.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In spite of the many promises made by this government, self-managed attendant care remains out of the reach of the majority of disabled people in this province. In spite of a large body of evidence that proves self-managed care is most cost-effective, more respectful of an individual's dignity and freedom, no action has been taken to make it a reality. In Ontario and Manitoba and other provinces, client-managed attendant care programs have been in place for a number of years. So I ask the Minister of Health, when is your government going to finally turn the pilot projects into a full program in Nova Scotia?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have a number of programs and a number of plans in the works that when funding becomes available, we'll be able to move forward. Until the funding becomes available, Mr. Speaker, it will be difficult. And even though we have added an additional $230 million to health care this year, that only allows us to carry on in delivering the programs we currently have. We look forward to the day when additional funding will allow us to move forward with this program and many others.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North on your first supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would say to the honourable minister that this is a matter of priorities, not a matter of resources. It's a matter of where the minister decides to put this on the ledger sheet of his department. Mr. Speaker, this government is missing the point that self-managed attendant care will save them money. A study conducted into self-managed care showed that clients were happier and more independent. It also showed clearly that clients were healthier and needed fewer visits to doctors and emergency rooms. Once again, to doctors and emergency rooms. I asked the minister, given the present pressures on home care, emergency rooms, and family doctors, why is your government still delaying the implementation of the self-managed attendant care program?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I can tell the honourable member and tell the House that we are, as the honourable member referenced in the preamble to his first question, we are making plans for being able to move forward with this program and many other programs. And we see a host of those programs, Mr. Speaker, that if we had the resources, we could look forward to the longer term, allowing us to reduce our costs. Until we get the funds to be able to do that, Mr. Speaker, it's a challenge. The honourable member has not suggested which program within my department I should cut in order to implement this program, Mr. Speaker, and I suggest that he should give thought
final
to that.
supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would remind the honourable minister if I was in his department and seen the ledger books, then I would make the kind of decision that is necessary to bring in a self-managed attendant care program. The problem is I don't have your books, Mr. Minister. Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. Honourable member Dartmouth North has on his final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the person with disability should not face the indignity of an endless stream of strangers attending to their personal needs. Nor should they be trapped in their homes waiting for services at an unknown time. I ask the Minister of Health, self-managed attendant care is cost-effective, it saves the acute care system money, and it gives the client dignity and freedom. So what is stopping you from finally putting this self-managed attendant care in place in this province.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the honourable member knows, and most Nova Scotians know, Mr. Speaker, that the challenges of funding health care are very significant. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you and the honourable member and all members of the House that the funding requirements for us to expand the capacity of health care are very significant, and we're looking forward to opportunities to obtain those additional funds so that we can move forward with programs such as this and many others that we would like to move forward with, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Richmond.
Mr. Speaker, my question was for the Premier, but I guess I'll redirect it. Mr. Speaker, the appointment of the first Deputy Minister of Energy followed an extensive search of 160 candidates, identifying Dan McFadden as the best of the overall candidates. The Premier boasted Mr. McFadden's leadership would bring more jobs and benefits to the energy sector here in Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, Mr. McFadden is leaving less than 2 years as Deputy, following the footsteps of Dr. Tom Ward, the former Deputy Minister of Health, and other senior civil servants in this province. In his place, the Premier has appointed Alison Scott, who we all know has little to no experience in energy, who we are told her top priority will be to cut red tape at the federal level, although the government continues to cry that it can't do anything with the federal government. So, Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister of Energy is, can he indicate why his government did not undertake an extensive search for a qualified Deputy Minister of Energy for Nova Scotia?
Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member knows, the appointment of deputy ministers is the prerogative of the Premier, and I refer that to the Deputy Premier.
The Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier of this province has made very wise choices in the past with respect to the selection of deputy ministers, and I'm sure that the present appointment will follow that same tradition.
The honourable member for Richmond on your first supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, Nova Scotians are looking for a sign that this government takes our offshore seriously. Multinational companies and investors are watching what this province does. Dan McFadden brought our province credibility. Today, that credibility is gone, and our offshore in this province is stagnant. Nova Scotians know that the appointment of Alison Scott is simply a case of a Premier on his way out the door looking after his friends before he leaves. So I ask the acting Premier. To the acting Premier, what credibility or confidence can Nova Scotians or energy officials have in this government when they appoint one of their own political friends rather than seek out the best qualified candidate for Deputy Minister of Energy?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I certainly hope that the Premier is not going out the door, because that would be rather unfortunate at this stage of the game. Mr. Speaker, the Premier has given his commitment, I believe, to remaining as Premier of this province, and I certainly hope that he does so. With respect to his choice of deputy ministers, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that that question will have to wait until such time as the Premier is in the House to answer that question, because I'm sure that honourable member knows full well that the appointment of deputy ministers is never delegated. It always remains with the Premier.
The honourable member for Richmond on your final supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, clearly the Premier is not here for us to ask him to make those commitments. So
Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. Order, please. The honourable member knows full well he's not to acknowledge the presence or absence of a member in the House. The honourable member for Richmond on his final supplementary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I was simply following the answer given
you
by
look at you'll see it was a different comment. Anyway, the honourable member for Richmond on his final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, gas prices are going through the roof in this province. Nova Scotians are looking for a qualified Deputy Minister of Energy to lead and grow our offshore industry and bring stability to the energy sector here in this province. Instead, the Premier has bypassed the competitive process by appointing an individual from their political backyard who is clearly not qualified to handle such an important position for the future growth of this province. So my question to the acting Premier, will he commit on behalf of the government to an open competition to find the best qualified Deputy Minister of Energy, or will he at least assure Nova Scotians that Alison Scott is not in a conflict of interest as the new Deputy Minister of Energy?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I just got a note actually to advise me about the record of the past Liberal government with respect to deputy ministers. However, I don't have to respond to them in that fashion. I simply have to say that Alison Scott has been connected with government. She was connected to the former Liberal government, and Mr. Speaker, she has given tremendous service to the provided tremendous service to the people of Nova Scotia, and I know that she will continue to do so as Deputy Minister of Energy.
The honourable member for Pictou West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question through you is to the Minister of Transportation and Public Works. In Pictou County, as some of you may be aware, there's an active group of community and business people aiming to stimulate economic development along the Alma-Mount Tom highway. And the Alma-Mount Tom Strategic Planning Group, as they're called, has identified an upgrade and improvement to Highway 4 as one of the keys to ensuring solid economic development prospects. And I know that this government agrees that roads are important to economic development because in Blue Book 1, they promise, and I quote, work with communities to ensure highways and secondary roads are planned and designed to optimize economic growth as a priority. So my question to the Minister, Mr. Minister, will you work with this community group to improve Highway 4 in Pictou County as a way to help stimulate economic development?
Minister of Transportation and Public Works.
Mr. Speaker, it's very clearly the policy of the Department of Transportation to be an enabler to enable businesses and communities to grow and to prosper. So certainly, Mr. Speaker, any group that fosters a similar process, we'd be welcome to assist.
Now, member for Pictou West on your first supplementary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to the Minister of Natural Resources, another priority that has been identified by this strategic planning group is the revitalization of Salt Springs Provincial Park. Since 2002, this park has been reduced to a day-use park from one where overnight camping was available. And this park requires an infrastructure investment for today's travelers and more considered efforts at promotion. And certainly that could act as a catalyst to help economic development in the area, get other businesses started. So I'd like to ask the Minister of Natural Resources, what commitment will you make today to work with this group and our local RDA to redevelop Salt Springs Provincial Park?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the honourable member. I definitely will work with your RDA and with the community concerned citizens on any park in the province of Nova Scotia. And if they want to meet with me, my office is open and I'm available to meet with those people anytime they want to meet.
Now, member Pictou West on your final supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Minister. My final question is to well, I guess not to the Premier, to the acting Premier then. As we've just heard, the formation of the Alma-Mount Tom Strategic Planning Group promises to be a good thing for our local economy. They're working hard to have Highway 4 repaved. They're working hard to see the Salt Springs Provincial Park revitalized. And these are key priorities, not just for this group, but for many residents in Pictou County. So to the acting Premier, what is your government prepared to do to stimulate economic development in the Alma-Mount Tom area?
The Honourable Deputy Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I would think that would be an economic development question, so I'll refer to the Minister of Economic Development.
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do welcome the question because the local RDA has been working hard with the citizens group and the business group in that area, and I've personally met with several businesses from that particular area that have growth plans and opportunities to help the economic lifeline of that particular area in the future, and we'll continue to work with them and support their efforts.
The Honourable Member for Victoria Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Environment. Orangedale is located in Cape Breton, Mr. Speaker, adjacent to Victoria Lakes, and they have a serious drinking problem in their water supply. Over the past 4 months, the boil order has been lifted only for 2 weeks and 4 months, Mr. Speaker. When the bacteria levels improve, the water remains high in aluminum. The quality of water is unstable, safety levels are fluctuating and are always unpredictable. Mr. Speaker, the water is actually unfit for drinking. My question to the Minister of Environment is when or what kind of help can the community of Orangedale expect from this government?
Honourable Acting Minister of Environment and Labour. Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that, in fact, that there are active meetings ongoing now to work on this difficult problem in order to find a solution that works for the community.
The honourable member for Victoria the Lakes on your first supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the community has looked for better solutions with little more than sympathy from the government. Quality levels of late have been consistent but still unsuitable for human consumption. We all feel that everybody deserves clean drinking water, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question for the minister is, will he tell this House why has the government turned a deaf ear or failed to come up with a plan to help the community of Orangedale?
The Honourable Acting Minister of Environment and Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the honourable member would know that from the earlier answer that the contrary is true. In fact, the government is working with the community in order to provide them with a solution that provides them with clean drinking water. And I think it's important, Mr. Speaker, to point out to the honourable member that one of the reasons that we are able to detect the problems with the drinking water in that community is because this government implemented strict guidelines with respect to testing of water to ensure that public drinking water is safe.
Victoria the Lakes, you have about 30 seconds.
Mr. Speaker, how long is the government going to work before they come up with a solution? The residents are traveling 6 kilometers to get safe drinking water. What they figure is safe, but it's from a spring that's untreated and bacteria levels are hopefully not too high. Mr. Speaker, can the minister tell this House what has the government been doing while the residents of Orangedale have been traveling 5 to 6 kilometers out of their own community to get water?
Please, the Honourable Acting Minister of Environment and Labour. Unfortunately, won't have time to answer. A lot of question period has expired. The Honourable Member for the Honourable Leader of the Liberal Party on an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to you, through you, and to all members of the House, I would like to introduce a special guest in our West Gallery this afternoon. Rick Frotton is our newly Liberal-nominated candidate for Chester St. Margaret's. So I would ask Mr. Frotton to rise and receive the warm welcome of the House.
Thank you. Orders of the day, government business, the Honourable Government House Leader. Order, please. The Honourable Government House Leader on government business.
Speaker, would you please call the order of business public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading.
Mr. Speaker, would you please call Bill number 64, the Capital Region Transportation Authority Act?
Bill number 64, the Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid. You have about 51 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure again to stand and say a few words on Bill 64, an act to establish a transportation authority for the Capital Region. As I was saying yesterday in my comments, that a lot of the residents in my community, I'm sure residents throughout HRM...
Order, please. Order, please. The Honourable Member for Sackville-Cobequid has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A lot of the members of my community, and I would assume throughout HRM, are wondering, once they heard this bill being proposed to create a new transportation authority, their concerns lie with, what is this going to cost the government? What is this going to cost the province? Eventually, what is it going to cost the people of HRM and the whole province? It's justified because in this bill here, it's really limited on what we can read through on especially on their mandate. And they truly have concerns, and I have concerns. Our caucus have concerns on this, and would like to see more information placed in this bill on how the board is going to be selected, or the directors of the authority, and what their mandate is, what kind of teeth, if you want to call it, they will have when they try to implement changes to the transportation system throughout the central region here, or HRM. The reason they have so much concern is because of the high cost of fuel these days. Just the other day when I put $25 in my vehicle, I noticed on the bill, it was through Ultramar, they actually break down the percentages. Over $9 of that was taxes, provincial and federal. So when they hear that the government's going to open up or establish a new identity or group or an authority in this case, they're wondering, is this something that we should be spending our money on? Their hard-earned money, my hard-earned money also, and is it going to be something for the betterment of our area here, for the central region? As I was saying yesterday, there's a lot of concern with the transportation throughout the city, what we have or what we don't have, and the lack of some areas where I think we need to really work on over the next few years. As we've seen over the last number of years, the out-migration of rural Nova Scotia, and a lot of these residents that live in rural Nova Scotia are moving towards the central region here. Our population has exploded, I would say, over the last, I'd say, 10 years. And it doesn't take you long to look when you drive around the city, especially with my drive-in, if I come through the By-High, on the development you see, especially the condominiums and the apartment complexes. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of them being built just in the last few years. I know as an emergency healthcare worker, responding, big part of our job now is to find out where these new streets are, the new apartments, how to get into them. Do they have available elevators and that aspect? So our area here in the central region is really